Yeah, Branch and Jay, like two, like their business minds around the sport. I mean, their work ethic in general. I mean, we've talked about that on the podcast too, about how people don't, like, it just blows my mind how people don't put that work ethic. If you can compete and get in true contest shape, there is nothing that will be as difficult as that.
Yeah.
You know, and it's crazy to me that like Branch and Jay, and I mean, there's more, but that so few bodybuilders put
What's
that
been
to
really cool
use.
about being around Branch this week too, and like, granted, I'm like, when I say I've been around him, I mean like we've had a couple conversations. He looked at my posing. I'm not like, oh yeah, we're like, you know. But like it was really, really cool. I got to sit across from him when the team all went out to lunch, and he mentioned two things that really stuck with me. Number one, do your homework. But then the other, he's really big on being a well-rounded, three-dimensional person. And I think for him, and probably for many of us, bodybuilding, training, all those things, like they really are a segue into being a well-rounded person. And so kind of like you were saying, like, if you can put in the
Mm-hmm.
effort to be absolutely shredded and contest lean and ready for stage, there's no reason you can't take that effort and make your life better in so many other ways for it. Because at the end of the day, like at some point, bodybuilding's going to be gone. You're going to be done. You will have stepped off the stage for the last time, and you will be a better person, more well-rounded for it, or you will have no idea and have a lot of identity role confusion in terms of who you are and what you're doing next. Justin, you probably know more about
Yeah,
that.
and if you don't have somewhere to point that passion, it's a hard.
Good.
I mean, I went through a hard phase trying to figure out. I mean, well, mine got pointed into physics for a while, which is probably a dumb path. I mean, it was really cool, but there's no money in it. But well, yeah, I mean, I realized quickly, like it's like the post contest blues. You know, like you hate prep, and prep is terrible, but everything feels so heightened and important. Every meal is important. Everything's make or break. You can't wait for it to be over because you can eat anything you want. But then when it's over, you're actually depressed because now things don't matter. It feels like it's not. I mean, it slowly transitions into now off season matters. But after like you get those first couple free meals in, it's like you almost feel lost. Like, well, now every 2 hours
Mhm.
isn't make or break. It's like you get a similar thing when you're
Did
competition
you
years
feel
are
that at
over
all this
too.
week? So now that you're done with your show and you're kind of coming off the couple days of, rebounding and all of that, how have you felt
Uh,
mentally?
I don't know. We talked about this in a different podcast, and I said I like don't get the post competition blues. For the most part, I don't. I did have like maybe 2 or 3 days where I felt kind of melancholy, and I don't know if I like really processed why. But I don't know if I would even call it the post contest blues because honestly, like going into the show, I think I told you at some point like this show is like the least of my worries and the least things stressing me out right now. It's just because we had so much other stuff going on. Namely like my job situation. It's like not like my current job is in jeopardy, but I mean, long story short, I'm a contractor right now with Microsoft, and they kind of maybe there's a little dishonesty around it, but it's like, well, we don't have any full time positions open. So I'm like, great, I'm a contractor in a job that I don't particularly like. It pays great right now, but it's like we just moved into this nice house and we have like took on some extra debt. I'm like, well, what am I going to do here? And the interviews, like I've been in interviews for a couple of months now with different companies, and it's all stuff to where if my mind had been like not occupied with prep and I wasn't half brain dead, I probably could have done better. But I kept like kind of missing the mark on all these interviews. I'm like, shit, what's gonna happen with this? So yeah, all that stuff was basically stressing me out, and I think maybe that had more to do with why. Because like I finished the show and I got in this food that I was like looking forward to make me feel better, and like physically it made me feel better for like a day, and then after that I was like, well, shit, right back into the fire with all these other stressors. Now, a week removed from
Yeah.
that, I feel much better, and I already felt much better. And then just I think I told you, I mean, I'm getting an offer from Amazon, so things are looking up in that regard. And not like I want to be a W-2 employee for any longer than I have to be, but for now, that's having a good job is really beneficial. So yeah, I guess things are looking up now. I had a few days of blues, but I mean, what you said about everything having purpose, like I kind of approach the off season that way too, and this is how I do a lot of things in life. And it's like almost like I'll just say it like almost autistically. Like I'm sorry if anyone gets offended by that, but actually we joke, but like not really joking. I'm probably somewhere on the spectrum anyway. But like if I like approach a goal and I say, well, I need to do X, Y, Z to accomplish the goal, I will just be like, it will become the thing that has to get done.
Oh, it is. He is so laser focused to the point where, like, when we first started dating, so
Yeah.
we started dating with like 3 weeks of us dating. I was in Colorado, he was in Kansas. I moved in with him, and I was like, oh my God, he has these, I have no idea how to handle this person. And it's been really good for us to figure out
I've loosened up a bit since
a
then.
lot.
Well, that's kind of the nice thing about bodybuilding training. Like I'm kind of a prima donna about my training with bodybuilding, but I also know you can get a good session in almost anywhere if you're a little bit flexible. With powerlifting, it was like I got to have this bar, this rack at this time. All my orthopedic shit has to be spot on because I'm going to hurt myself if it's not. So things have freed up a little bit in that regard. And so the thing that you really have to be anal about is your meals. And thankfully, we're both in a position where we have quite a bit of flexibility in that regard. I mean, we're very busy, but I work from home. I can get up and get my meal whenever I want, so I can be laser focused without it being as much a detriment to my life and Danny's as it probably was the case a few years ago. But yeah, like I was saying, if I have the blues, it's for a very short time because now I'm like, all right, I've had 2 off seasons where I gained somewhere between literally 15 and 30 pounds of stage weight. I want to make that happen again, and I know it happened the first 2 times because I treated it with that much urgency. So
that's a perfect, like, kind of wrapping things up. We talk about having goals. Like, why did you gain 15 to 30 pounds? Because because every meal all year, and that's the biggest thing where I see with people like, yeah, I want to turn pro. And it's like, well, what did you eat on for meal 3 on Tuesday of March 4th? Where you would be like, well, let me think back. And like people be like, I don't know what I ate this Tuesday, and that's the difference. There's no, like, everyone has like these goals and they're way out in the future, and there's so much that happens between them, but that there's a path towards that goal, and if you put your focus and do that every day, things build up really quickly. I used to, when I was first starting, like, trying to start Troponin nutrition, and I didn't know anything about, this is 20 years ago, like, there weren't even like really platforms to build a website, and so I had no idea, like, really. So my thing was, every day I'm just going to do one thing. And, some days you do more, but no matter what, even if like we were traveling and we didn't get home till 10:30 at night, and I had to work in the morning, doesn't matter. That's some progress forward. And then eventually, I was 20 years ago. 20 times 365, that's a lot of things, and things do add up, and time's going to pass. I always say, like, this, most like my overweight clients, my clients who are non-competitors, it's the hardest for them because if you're 350 pounds, you have a long time before you're at your goal. But I always say, time's going to pass either way. Like, COVID was 3 years ago almost now. Time passes. It's going to be 2 years from now, one way or the other. In 2 years, and it's going to happen like this when it's 2 years from now. And in 2 years, you can be in the shape that you want to be, living the life you want to be, or not. But either way, it's going to happen. And now that seems way far off right now, and you don't want to do these things with the diet that you don't want to do because it's so far off. But I can guarantee when that 2 years passes, which is going to be a blink of an eye at that time, you're going to be really angry that you didn't do the things that could have had you at your goal. Because like, every present was some future, and the only reason your present isn't where you're at, not at your goals currently, is because you didn't treat it like the present.
It's funny, Justin, I imagine you're probably the same way. Like, I have, as much as I have the capacity to laser focus and work hard on something, I also have like an alarming capacity for laziness, to where, like, so something can either happen at twice the rate anyone expects it to and go awesome, or it can just never happen.
Yeah, I don't have. I think Dave Tate always used to say, like, he knows where 0% is and 100% is. It doesn't, and I think a lot of people in the sport, especially in my experience, people who come to the sport from like a powerlifting background or maybe a wrestling background, it's like on or off, and I'm definitely that same way. I mean, I can sit and think, like, like in Ghostbusters when they're up there with Zool and they have to not think anything, and Dan Aykroyd thinks to the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. Is that Stay Puft, right? Yeah, I would have passed out with flying colors. I could shut completely off and think nothing.
Look, that's why taking it easy in training is hard, even when you know you should. I'm like, I know how to go and train hard or not go to the gym.
Yeah, it feels like, and that could be a good segue to our next the training volume or frequency segment. But yeah, I always struggled with that because I really had to turn the deloads into a goal. You have to realize while you're doing it. But even then, especially because if you like training, and I think people come from a powerlifting background or like a athletic or strength background where you train, originally you go to the gym because of performance, to improve your performance, and so the gym has real world metrics and real world applications to what you're trying to do, which isn't so much the case with bodybuilding. Like you said, powerlifting is training, bodybuilding is eating. That's really what it is. You have to train obviously, but the eating is what dictates everything. The training is, there's a whole range of things you can do in the gym that will produce pretty close to maximal results, provided your eating is perfect. But the eating's always has to be there. But it's really hard when you like training and you want to go in and lift heavy and you don't get to. That's really hard, I think.
For more content like this, visit www.teamtroponin.com.
This video is brought to you by First Attachment Nutrition, battle-tested nutrition, expert formulated supplements. Join the First Attachment revolution.